I'm Cath. My channel is Made by Cath Craft. Welcome to my latest video, which is all about closet core sewing patterns. So this is part of a video series I've been doing where I pick a particular pattern company, talk a bit about it, and then share my makes that I've made using that pattern company's sewing patterns. And today it's the turn of Closet Core, which is a pattern company I really love. I really like their patterns. I've got quite a few of them. Got a bit of a stack here to talk about. In this video, I'm going to be sharing my makes and I'll share pictures and share the actual makes themselves and talk a bit about each pattern and the patterns that I really like and maybe the patterns I won't be making again. And at the end of the video, I'm also going to share a couple of my top picks of closet core patterns I haven't made to date, but I would like to make in the future. So it's all about closet core patterns this video, but I'll start off first of all with a little bit about the pattern company itself. So Closet Core Patterns is an independent pattern company and they're based out of Montreal in Canada, and they've got quite a big pattern catalogue now, and they make patterns for all sorts of different garments: tops, trousers, jumpsuits, dresses, lingerie, swimwear, jackets, all sorts. And I really enjoy sewing their patterns. They've got a really good size range too. All of their new patterns they release in two size ranges, a US 0 to 20 and a US 14 to 32. So a really inclusive size range, although some of their older patterns are only still available at the moment in the 0 to 20 range, but I know they've recently been extending some of those older pattern size ranges. For example, recently the Kelly Anorak was introduced in a size 14 to 32 range too, so it's worth watching the space on the older patterns because they may well be extended going forward. But yeah, I really enjoy sewing closet core patterns. I find the instructions in the instruction manual to be really clear. I really enjoy following their instructions. I find the photographs really good too. And what I also love about Closet Core Patterns is on their online website, they have a wealth of extra information and help. They release a lot of blog posts that are tutorials with more detailed information for how to tackle some of the trickier parts of some of their patterns, with lots of colour photographs and in-depth information that can really help hold your hand through those trickier stages. And I've accessed that information quite a few times and found it really, really helpful. And what is also on their website is a free pattern library that you can sign up to be part of. And that is great too. There's some really, really good patterns in that free pattern library, including a t-shirt, a dog's coat, and my favourite, which is the Closet Core poof pattern, which is a really great scrap buster. And I'll share a couple of my poofs later in this video. But I'll start off first of all with sharing some of my makes using the Closet Core patterns. There are quite a few, so I'll get started now. So one of the first Closet Core patterns that I tried is a real indie classic pattern, and it's this one here. It is the Calais shirt and shirt dress pattern, which is a woven shirt and shirt dress pattern. And it's a really, really versatile pattern with loads of different mix and match options built in. So I think it's a really fun pattern to sew because you can choose different parts, and each Calais you make can be really different from the previous one. So you can have a whole wardrobe of Calais that all look really different to each other. And I'll show you my different versions in a moment, but I'll show you the line drawings first. And I should mention this pattern is available in the full Closet Core range from 0 to 32. So it's quite a straight fit, relaxed style shirt and shirt dress, and you can make it in three different lengths: this cropped length and a tunic length and a dress length. And the mix and match options include two different collars, a full collar and band collar. At the back there's a yoke and then two different pleat options, an inverted V pleat and a box pleat. And at the front there are three different button placket options: a hidden placket, a pop over placket and a classic button placket. And you can add a patch pocket too. And there are two different hems as well, a bias bound finished hem, and then this crop version has a wide hem with a facing. So it really is quite a lot of fun at choosing which bits of the pattern you want to choose for your own version. But I've made a few versions. The first version I made was this one here, the tunic length version with a pop over placket and the full collar. And I made it in this really cute gingham fabric, in a navy gingham. So here it is, it's just a cotton fabric, and I really love this version. It's quite old now, but I really enjoy getting it out, particularly in spring weather, maybe styling it with a pair of leggings. It's just really fun to wear and really comfy too. So I went for the full collar, this pop over placket, and I had fun with the turning the check round to make it diagonal on the pop over placket and also on the cuffs here. And I've got the box pleats on the back, which you can hopefully see there. And I really enjoyed the hem of this one with the bias bound hem. I think it was my first ever bias bound hem I tried and I loved it. And I particularly like it in the gingham where you can see the sort of gingham diamonds going around the hem. So it's finished really nicely. And I found because it's a shirt and it was one of my earlier shirts I sewed, and I was a bit nervous, particularly around the pop over placket, But for this one, I used the tutorials on the Closet Core website, and I found them really handy for helping me through the more fiddly stages of this one. So I'll pop up a picture of me wearing this one. Although it's my oldest Calais, I think it might still be my favourite. I really love this one. But I enjoyed sewing it so much, I went on to sew another version quite soon after, and I chose a few different options for my second version. So here is my second version, and as you can see, this is the cropped version, although I actually lengthened it by a couple of inches because when I looked at the pattern pieces, I thought it was going to come up really short on me. And having lengthened it by a couple of inches, it now sort of skims the top of my high-waisted jeans, which I quite like. So my second version I made in this really lovely broderie on glaze style fabric, a cotton fabric again, with this lovely daisy print on, which I think is really pretty, and it's a little bit sheer, so I think you can see a few of the nice details on this pattern quite nicely. For example, the detail in the pocket, you can see the sort of V on the inside of the pocket that I really like, and also this has got the wide facing hem, and you can really see that detail again with the sheerness of the fabric. So lovely hem on this one, with a dipped hem at the back that goes slightly longer. I think that's really pretty. And I went for the band collar because I think on the whole I do prefer a band collar. I find it a bit less hot around my neck. So that's my second version. I'll put a picture of me wearing that one too. And then more recently I made one other version. I thought I'd done the cropped version, I'd tried the tunic, so I should really try the dress version. So here is my dress version. I went for a bit of a brighter fabric for this one. It's a really lovely floral cotton poplin fabric. I just love the colours in this and the ditzy floral. I thought they were really, really pretty. I didn't add a patch pocket onto this because I didn't think you'd see it with a busy print, and I wouldn't probably use it particularly. But I did have fun with some bright yellow buttons on this one. I went for the V pleat at the back, which you can hopefully see there. And some yellow top stitching as well. I love the top stitching that you can do on the placket. I think it's a really nice feature and I really enjoyed that. So yeah, this is my final version. I think I might have lengthened it a little bit because my tunic does come up a bit short, and I wanted to make sure the dress is something I could wear without having to wear leggings underneath. So I'll put up a picture of me wearing this one too. I often like to style this on with a little belt, sort of a little black belt around the middle to kind of cinch in a little bit to give it a bit more shape. But I love this version too. And for all three versions, in terms of sizing, I actually sized down on this pattern. So my measurements are bust 32, waist 26, hips 36, which actually put me across a 2 to 6 size range with those three measurements. But I've always made the straight size 0 on this pattern because when I looked at the finished garment measurements, which are inside the pattern envelope, they show this pattern is designed to be quite oversized and there was loads of ease in it, and I didn't want mine to be too oversized on me. So I sized down to the size 0, and there's always been perfectly fine. There's plenty of room even around the hips on that one, which is my largest measurement. So I've always gone for the straight size 0. And I've got one more Calais to share with you, which is a Calais hack, because I think this pattern is really hackable too. You can have a lot of fun with it. So I hacked it by cropping it off and adding on a gathered skirt to turn it into a sort of summery dress. And here is my hacked version here. So you can see I've got the Calais bodice here with the button down front and a band collar and the cuffed sleeves. And I added on a gathered skirt with pockets, got to have pockets and waist ties to cinch it in, and a bit of a dipped hem in ode to the Calais too. I did remove the pleat at the back, so I thought that wasn't really needed to add the extra room because I wasn't going to be making it long. I was just going to be cropping it off for a shirt dress. So this is my shirt dress version. I really enjoyed having a play with the Calais pattern and making this one. And I made this one in a cotton lawn fabric. I think it's a Lady McElroy cotton lawn, and this really pretty peach colour with these overside leaves on it. So I'll put up a picture of this one too. Those are my 4 Calais I've made, and I don't think I'm finished that pattern. I really enjoy sewing it, so I'm sure there'll be more Calais in my future. So I'll move on now to another one of my earlier Closet Core makes, and this pattern is another one of my favourites like the Calais, and it's this pattern here. It's the Closet Core Charlie Caftan pattern. So it's another pattern that's designed for woven fabrics, and it's another pattern that's also available in the full Closet Core range from 0 to 32. And I'll show you the line drawings on this one. I think it is a really, really great dress for summer. So you can make it as a shorter dress or a longer maxi dress. And both versions have this V-neck at the front. And you can either make a short version with these sort of architectural pleats at the front that's got quite a straight fit, or the gathering underneath this centre panel. Or for the maxi dress version here, there's the option to add waist ties and bring it in and create more of a romantic silhouette, I guess. And it's got quite wide sort of dolman sleeves, although you can make a slightly smaller sleeve version if you want a little bit more sort of bra coverage. But I think this is a great dress for keeping really cool but also covered in the summer. It's lovely to sort of waft about in on a hot summer's day, and I think it works really well in drapey fabrics like a viscose, which is what I've made both my versions in. So I'll show you my versions, and one of them is pretty old now, but I always enjoy getting out in the summer. And that's this version here. So I made this version as a short version, but I made it with the gathering detail underneath the centre bar, and I added in the waist ties that are included on the maxi version because I thought it would be nice to be able to cinch it in a little bit. It's almost like an empire waist. This one, it comes up a bit higher than my natural waist. And it's got the V-neck here and the nice wide sleeves that are really nice and cooling on a hot summer's day. And I made it in this really pretty viscose fabric with a sort of dark blue base and then sort of these large scale florals in whites and a bit of coral, which I think is a really pretty print. And I remember finding this quite a tricky sew, particularly the V-neck here. There's a facing on the inside and getting the viscose to sort of behave nicely around there, and also inserting this centre panel. But I used the tutorial on the Closet Core website for those details and found that really, really helpful, and it helped me get through those slightly more tricky steps. So that is my first version. I'll put a picture up of me wearing it. It is one I always go to in summer when I'm feeling a bit hot. And I enjoyed making that one, but I didn't revisit it until more recently when I decided to make one of this beautiful tropical print fabric. I've actually luckily won a competition on Instagram. This is an Atelier dupe viscose fabric. It's such nice quality and I love the print on it. I thought the tropical print would work really well for a sort of breezy summer dress. So I pretty much made the same version as before because I loved it so much, with the gathering underneath the centre panel and the waist ties and the shorter length, because this time I was limited by fabric. I just had, I think, 2 meters to work with, and that wouldn't have been able to squeeze out a maxi dress, but I really like it as a short version anyway. So it's a really nice, comfy, relaxed one to wear. And again with this one, it's one I sized down on because there's lots of ease in the pattern. I think again, I went for the size 0, so slightly down on my measurements, but there's still plenty of room in this pattern, I find, so it works really well sized down on me. And as I said, put a picture up of the second version. I'll put a picture up of the second version so you can see what that looks like on too. It's a lovely summery pattern. I would love to make a maxi version at some point. I think that'd be perfect for maybe going out on an evening on a summer holiday abroad or something like that. It's a really nice pattern to sew and wear. So the next pattern I'm going to talk about is actually one I've made only once, and I probably won't be revisiting anytime soon, and I'll talk about why in a moment, but I'll share the details of the pattern first. And it is this one here, the Ginger Jeans pattern, which is another pattern that's available in the full Closet Core size range. And this pattern is designed to be made in stretch denim, so it's a stretchy jeans pattern rather than a rigid sort of denim jeans pattern. So I'll show you the line drawings. There are 2 different views. View A is for a straight leg jean with a low rise, and view B is for a skinny leg jean with a higher rise, although you could easily mix and match those 2 options. So I decided to give jeans making a go a couple of years ago when I was really struggling to find ready-to-wear jeans that fit me. I wasn't particularly keen on the idea of making my own jeans. It wasn't one of those things I'd always wanted to try, but I thought I'd give it a go and see how I got on and see whether it was something I'd enjoy and want to make more of. So yeah, I decided to try the Ginger Jeans pattern because I like the idea of the lower rise version, because I had quite a lot of pairs of lower rise jeans at that time. Since I've moved on to higher rise jeans, but anyway, I thought I'd give them a go, and I like stretchy jeans rather than rigid jeans, so I thought this pattern would work well. And I knew that Closet Core had loads of online tutorials all around all of the different stages of the jeans making, which I was a bit nervous about, so I thought they'd be a great company to hold my hand through the process of making the jeans. So I gave this pattern a go and I took it slowly through it, and actually the jeans came out perfectly fine. I have no complaints about this pattern. I found the instructions really good. The online tutorials were great. I didn't find the jeans process too awful, although I'm not sure it's something I enjoyed as much as sewing other things. But I don't actually have my pair of jeans to show you because I ended up gifting them away because of my own fault. I chose the wrong fabric, and the fabric I went for I don't think had quite enough stretch in. So I wanted to make sure they were quite close fitting, so I went for that. But when I tried them on eventually, they were actually a bit too close fitting and felt a bit uncomfortably tight, and they weren't sort of stretching and easing in as much as I wanted them to. So they just weren't very wearable, unfortunately. But I'll put a picture up of how they looked on so you can see them. So I learned quite a lot about jeans making, and as I said, I think it was my poor fabric choice. I could have done with jeans a bit more stretch, and maybe I could have sized up a little bit. I'm not sure about that too. So yeah, it wasn't the pattern at all. I think this pattern is still a great pattern. I found it did make the process of making jeans quite easy, but I've since discovered some ready-to-wear jeans that do fit me well. And I do mainly sew for enjoyment, so given I didn't really enjoy the jeans making process that much, for now I'll enjoy my ready-to-wear jeans, and if at some point in the future I need to revisit, I may well, and I'll probably shop around for a different fabric, and I may well give this pattern a go at some point, but I'm hoping for now my ready-to-wear jeans will last a while, so I won't need to revisit jeans making again because it wasn't my favourite. But I would recommend this jeans pattern if you are looking for a pattern that will hold your hands through the whole process, because it is a really good pattern still. I've got nothing against the pattern, it's just the whole jeans making process wasn't really for me. So the next pattern I wanted to talk about is another one of Closet Core's patterns where I've only made one version to date. But I would really like to revisit this pattern because it's one I really like and I really enjoy wearing my one version I've made. And I think it's a bit different too, this pattern, which I like. And it's this one here, it is their Fiona sundress pattern. So it's one of Closet Core's older patterns, and at the moment it's only available in their 0 to 20 size range. And I'll show you the line drawings. It's designed to be quite a fitted sundress or pinafore style pattern, which is a bit unusual, I think. You don't often come across a very fitted pinafore style pattern. And you can either make it as a shorter version here with this really pretty crossover back detail, this sort of deep V, or you can make it as a longer version with side slits and a straight back. Then it's got a button down front and patch pockets and princess seams on the bodice, which I really like and I think works really well for a tightly fitted garment. And it's designed to be made in medium weight woven fabrics. So although it's described as a sundress pattern, I really like the idea of making a wintry version as a pinafore for layering, which is what I decided to do for my version. So I'll show you my one version of the Fiona pinafore, and it's one I always enjoy getting out and wearing. So here is my version, my sort of wintry Fiona pinafore, as it were. And I made it in this really nice stretch denim fabric, which is quite comfy and stretchy to wear. I think actually this would have been a great fabric for the ginger jeans rather than the fabric I chose. And it works really nicely actually. Although the pattern says it's designed for woven fabrics, I think a woven fabric with a little bit of stretching is actually really nice because it's quite fitted. It just makes it a bit more comfortable to wear. So I made a just above the knee version, as you can see. I went for the straight back because I thought that would work well for a winter pinafore. And I've added on these jeans buttons down the front, which I really like. And it's got the patch pockets and you can see the princess seams. And what I enjoyed about this make as well is there's quite a lot of top stitching, which I do really enjoy. So yeah, this is my version. In terms of sizing, actually for this pattern, what I did was I made a toile of the bodice just purely for fit before I started work on my proper fabric. Because I wanted to nail the fit because it is designed to be close fitting. So I made my toile based on my measurements, which took me as a bust size 2, a waist size 4, and then up to a hips size 6. So I graded between those sizes, or at least for the toile on the bodice, purely the bodice, I graded between the bust and waist size. And I found it needed a few tweaks, so I was glad I made the toile so I could nail the fit before I cut into my proper fabric. I do find princess seams work quite well for tweaking. They're quite a nice style of garment to be able to tweak the fit and bring them a little bit and see how that works. So yeah, I was glad I made a toile of the bodice because it meant the fit of the final thing ended up quite good, and I'll put a picture so you can see how it does fit. So it's really comfy to wear, and I don't often wear really close fitting garments, but I find it really comfy to wear in the stretch denim, and I really love this version. And I really enjoyed sewing this pattern. Actually, it was a bit more technical than some patterns, but I really enjoyed the challenge of it. And I'd like to revisit it. I'd really like to make a summery version, actually maybe try that crossover back detail, which I think is really, really pretty. Maybe like in a cotton for summer. I'm not sure. I'll have to have a look for fabrics, but I would really like to revisit this one at some point because it was really enjoyable to sew and feels really nice to wear too. So that is my one Closet Core Fiona sundress garment, but I definitely like to revisit that pattern. So the next two patterns that I've made by Closet Core Patterns, I thought I'd introduce together because they were released as part of a two-piece set of loungewear called the Montreal Collection, and these are the patterns here. They are the Myland sweatshirt and the plateau joggers, and they are both released in Closet Core's full extended size range from 0 to 32. And I'll talk about each of these patterns individually because one I really love and the other one I just wasn't quite so keen on. So I'll talk about the one I really love first, which is this one here, the Myland sweatshirt. And I'm wearing a Myland sweatshirt today. I thought I should really wear something by Closet Core while I'm filming this video. And this is a really, really cool sweatshirt pattern. It might be my favourite Closet Core pattern actually. I just find it so wearable and I love all the details on it. And I'll show you the line drawings on this one. So it's a sweatshirt that's quite a relaxed fit, oversized sweatshirt. And you can either make it as a classic sweatshirt here, or this version here that's got this tie detail at the front, or a hooded sweatshirt with this crossover front and a kangaroo pouch detail. And I've only made this version here, but I really, really love it. And I love all the details on this pattern. So it's got a classic crew neck, as you can see, but the lovely details include these interesting style lines at the front. Instead of sewing a straight side seam, the seams come round to the front here. And then on the sleeves, there are darts added in, which give a really interesting shape to. And you can top stitch down the sleeves as well to give a really interesting detail. You can see how the sleeve is sort of split down the side here. And I really enjoy sewing this pattern up and I really enjoy wearing it too. So I've made 3 versions like I mentioned of this pattern. The one I'm wearing today, I think is the second version I made. And you can see these really cool darts on the sleeves, I love them. And I'll stand up a bit so you can see the style line too. And it's really comfy to wear, but it feels a bit special because of all the little details and style lines on this pattern. So the version I'm wearing today, I made in a fleece back sweatshirting fabric by Mind the Maker, which is really nice and cosy. And I got the matching ribbing too. And it's just a straight sweatshirt, but I lengthened it slightly because when I looked at the pattern pieces on me, it looked like it was going to come up a little bit cropped, and I didn't want it cropped. So I think I might have lengthened it by an inch or 2. And I'll stand up a bit so you can see where it comes down to now. So not super long by any means, but this is my second version. It was basically a reproduction, identical reproduction of my first version, which is here. And there's another version I made, another Mind the Maker sweatshirt fleece fabric. I can show you here how fleecy and snuggle it is on the inside. It's really nice and cosy to wear in this cold weather we've got at the moment. So this was my first version I made in this really pretty lilac colour, again with the matching ribbing around the neckline. And I'll show you a detail on the back as well that I like. It's got a yoke on the back, and you top stitch that down too, which I think is another really pretty detail of this pattern. So yeah, I made 2 of these in quick succession, and they're on constant rotation in my wardrobe. I find them really, really comfy to wear and nice and cosy too. And I actually found I had enough scraps from these 2 versions to make a third version, which is here. So as you can see, I combined the 2 colours and had a bit of fun with a bit of a mix. I've gone for the purple ribbing on the neckband and the sage green ribbing on the cuffs. And then at the back, I've got the green yoke and the purple lilac main bit. And I think this version really shows off all the interesting features at the top, particularly these style lines here. So I really enjoyed making this version too. And for this version, I actually cropped the pattern off and actually went for an intentional cropped version. Partly because I was limited on fabric because I was using up scraps, but I actually really love my cropped version. I'll put a picture of that one too, so you can see what that one looks like on. And I reach for it just as much as my 2 longer versions. I still find it really nice and cosy to wear. And for all my versions of the Myland sweatshirt, I sized down to the size 0, like I've done in a couple of closet core patterns I mentioned, because again, when I looked at the finished garment measurements, they did show it was pretty oversized, and I didn't want my versions to be too oversized, particularly not in quite snuggly sweatshirt fleece fabric. I thought they might end up being too bulky and not that convenient for kind of fitting underneath coats when I'm going out in the cold. So I went for a straight size 0. I think I lengthened the sleeve slightly, which is a standard adjustment I often make on a lot of patterns because I have long arms. And then I lengthened the bodice slightly like I mentioned, but other than that, which is a dream to sew, really enjoyable pattern. The Jarrah sweatshirt by Megan Nielsen used to be my favourite sweatshirt pattern, but I think the Myland sweatshirt might edge it. It's quite a tricky choice, but I do really love this one, so it's definitely a pattern I'll be making again. So the other pattern that forms part of the Montreal loungewear set collection alongside the Myland sweatshirt is this pattern here, the Plateau Joggers sewing pattern. And I was really keen to give this pattern a try alongside the Myland sweatshirt. I thought it would be quite fun to have my own Montreal loungewear set collection. And I also really liked a few of the details on the Plateau Joggers. I thought they had some interesting details to them, a bit like the Myland sweatshirt. I do already have a favourite joggers sewing pattern, which is the Hudson Pants by True Bias, which I've made quite a few pairs of and find really comfy, but I thought there seemed to be quite a few differences between the Hudson Pants and the Plateau Joggers, and I thought I'd give them a try and see how I found these ones. It'll be interesting to try a different joggers pattern, and maybe I might have surprised myself a bit like how much I love the Myland sweatshirt. So yeah, I decided to give this pattern a go, and I'll show you the line drawings first so you can see all the details of it. It's quite a high rise joggers and shorts pattern with an elasticated waist, and then it has this interesting wraparound pocket detail, which I really enjoyed sewing. It was really interesting to see how it came together. It's also got these patch pockets on the back that are optional, and then the joggers have 2 different finishes for the cuff that you can use, either a ribbed ankle cuff or an elasticated ankle cuff. So yeah, I thought it was really interesting, some of those details, particularly the wraparound pocket. I was really keen to give that a try. And I really enjoyed sewing up this pattern. I sewed them up in the same fabric as I'd used for my first Myland sweatshirt. I basically got enough of this fabric to make a matching set. And it's really nice and snuggly, so I thought it'd make a really cosy winter loungewear set. So I sewed up the joggers pattern. I really enjoyed sewing up the pattern. But actually, I don't have those joggers anymore because I decided they weren't for me and they weren't ones I was really going to wear. I'll put a picture up so you can see what they look like on. And my main issue, I think, with them, which is a personal issue and nothing wrong with the joggers pattern at all, is that I wasn't so keen on the high-waisted, high-rise style of joggers. The True Bias Hudson Pants are a bit more of a low-rise pattern, and I find that a bit more comfy for chilling on the sofa in the evening. I'm happy wearing sort of skinny jeans that are quite high-rise in the day, but when I sit down in the evening and want to have a relax, I just found that it was cutting around my waist a bit, and maybe I could have made the elastic a bit looser to give a little bit more ease there, but it just didn't feel quite right sitting there. It wasn't quite for me. And I also found they're described as a slim leg jogger, but I found their legs to be a bit more roomy than the Hudson pants, and I think I prefer the skinnier leg of the Hudson pants too. So although it was a really fun sew, this pattern, it's probably not one I will revisit. So yeah, it's not quite for me. I've gifted on those joggers, and yeah, probably won't revisit it for me. I think I'll stick to the true bias Hudson pants. But if you like a higher rise jogger pattern, I would definitely recommend this one. It is a really fun sew, especially those sort of wraparound pockets is really interesting detail. So a lovely pattern, but just not one that's quite for me. I've got another pattern that I prefer the fit on for me. So the next closet core pattern I wanted to talk about is one of their free patterns I mentioned earlier in this video, which is the closet core poof pattern. And it is one of my favourite patterns of theirs that I've really enjoyed sewing, and such a practical stash busting pattern too. So I'll put up a picture of the closet core poof so you can see what it looks like. It is available to download for free if you subscribe to their newsletters, and you gain access to their free pattern library. And it's a really cool pattern that you can basically make out of scraps and then stuff with scraps. So all the pieces are designed to be cut quite small, so you can squeeze them out of little scraps of fabric, and then any really small fabric scraps can be stuffed in the poof to sort of plump it up. And I really enjoy sewing this pattern. I've made a few closet core poofs, so I'll put up a few pictures of the ones I've made. I've made a couple for use downstairs in our house, using, I think one I made using a canvas fabric, and another one I made using some cotton ikat fabrics. And I've also made one for each of my son and daughter's rooms, and for their ones I scaled down to make mini poofs because they're limited on space in their rooms, using fabrics they chose. And it's been such a perfect way to use up a lot of my smaller fabric scraps by stuffing all those poofs. They're all nice and full now with little fabric scraps. So I'd really recommend that pattern. It's really fun to sew. You can make it with a zip on the bottom, so if you ever need to wash it, you can take the scraps out, give it a wash and pop the scraps back in. So it's really practical pattern as well, and definitely a lot of fun to sew. I would definitely recommend the closet core poof sewing pattern, and I'll probably make more at some point, but we don't really need any more in our house right now. So I've got one final pattern to share from my current closet core pattern collection before I move on to sharing a couple of their patterns I don't have at the moment, but I've got my eye on and I would quite like to sew in the future. And the final pattern I have in my closet core pattern collection is this one here. It is the Kelly Anorak pattern, and this is a pattern I mentioned earlier in the video that they've recently released in the full extended size range, so it now goes up to a US size 32. And it's a pattern I've had my eye on for quite a while, and ever since I started sewing pretty much, I admired quite a few versions of the Kelly Anorak, and I thought I'd really like to make my own version. But when I first started sewing, I was a bit daunted by all the details on this coat, and I thought it'd be a bit out of my depth. And then more recently I thought, no, I'd really like to give it a go. Now I've got some more sewing under my belt. I thought I'd like to give it a try, and it is something I haven't got in my wardrobe at the moment, but I'd love an anorak. I think it'd be a really practical garment, so it's something that I think I get a lot of use out of too. But I'll show you the line drawings of the Kelly Anorak. It's quite a classic style, straight fit anorak. You can either make it with a hood or with a stand-up collar, and then I'll just read out the other details because there are quite a few details in this one. It's got a two-piece cuffed sleeve, an optional drawstring waist, gusseted flap pockets, which are really cool, a zipper placket, snap buttons, and it'll keep you warm and dry with your choice of hood or stand-up collar. So yeah, a really nice anorak pattern. There's also an optional lining as well, so you can add on a lining and make it extra cozy if you want to. And I've actually got some fabric for this pattern, and I'm in the process of toiling it using some calico, and I've got my nice, I've got some cotton twill fabric in a navy colour I'd like to make my final anorak in, so kind of a classic navy blue anorak. But I've kind of stalled on the toiling process for one reason or another. I think it's a bit of a long-term project, and I need to be in the right mood to really get stuck into it. And other shorter projects I think have come along and taken my interest, so I need to get back to sewing this one, so I'd really like to have the anorak in my wardrobe, and I know there'll be a bit of fitting to do, so there's going to be some tweaking and playing about with it. So I thought I'd mention this video because it is in my pattern collection, and at some point hopefully I'll have my own Kelly anorak to share with you, but not quite yet. So those are all of the closet core patterns I've currently got in my pattern collection, and the garments I've sewn up using those sewing patterns to date. But now I'll move on to sharing a couple of closet core patterns I haven't yet got, but I've really got my eye on and would like to sew up in the future. And the first one is a dress pattern of theirs, and it's their Elodie wrap dress, and I'll put up some line drawings so you can see what it looks like. It's available in their full extended size range. It's a really pretty wrap dress with some lovely details, I think. It's got a wrap bodice and a dolman sleeve, and I do like a dolman sleeve, and really pretty pleats under the bust, and then quite a full swishy skirt that you can either make as a knee length or a midi length or maxi length. I don't often go for a wrap dress. I find they feel quite formal when I wear them, but I really like the idea of sewing up the LED wrap dress for a special occasion, like a wedding or a christening or something like that. I think it'll be really pretty in a really drapey viscose or something else, a swishy drapey fabric like that. So I'd really like to give it a go, probably in the midi length or the maxi length, but I need a special occasion first before I can justify buying this one. So hopefully I'll have one of those in the future, because I'd love to give this pattern a try. I just think it looks so pretty. So the other closet core pattern that I really fancy giving a try, and this is one I've had my eye on for quite a while and doesn't require a special occasion, is the Carolyn pyjamas. And again, I'll put up a line drawing so you can see the different variations and what the pyjamas look like. And they're another pattern that's available in the full extended closet core size range up to size 32. And I just think these pyjamas have some really pretty details to them, so I think they'd be a lot of fun to sew and really enjoyable to wear too. You can either make them as a shorts and a short sleeve pyjamas, or a full length pyjama bottom and a long sleeve pyjama. And the bottoms have an elasticated waist and a faux fly at the front. And you can either make it with a cuff or just a turn up hem. And then the top has this really pretty notched collar to it, which I think is a lovely detail. And there's an option to add piping around the edge of the notched collar too. And I've seen quite a few versions where piping's been used for the notched collar and also on the patch pocket as a little detail. And I think it looks so pretty, particularly when people have chosen a contrast colour for the piping to really show off that detail. I think I'd really enjoy taking my time over kind of choosing the fabric and a contrast colour for the piping, and then actually sewing it really slowly and making a really pretty sort of decorative pair of pyjamas. I think they'd be lovely for using as loungewear in the evening as well as wearing to bed. So I really like the idea of giving these pyjamas a go. I do like a pair of classic woven pyjamas. So this pattern is really right up my street and I must get it soon. I think it looks really lovely. So that is everything I wanted to share in this video about closet core patterns, all of the patterns I have and how I've found making them, and my favourites and the ones that aren't quite so much my favourites, and a couple of patterns I've got my eye on for the future too. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, then please do check out the other videos that I've done in this series where I pick out a particular pattern company and talk about all my makes I've made using that pattern company and review their patterns. I've done videos on Sew Over It, True Bias and Friday Pattern Company, to name a few, and I'll link them all down below in the video description in case you do fancy checking those out. And also, if you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel, thank you very much for tuning in. Please do subscribe and press the bell icon too, which means you'll then be notified when I bring my future videos out. So I'll see you for another video soon, but in the meantime, I hope you have a lovely day. And yeah, thanks again for watching. Bye!